Hi guys, Grant here from Method, and today I'm going to talk to you about my 5 favourite features from Shadowlands as we move on into Dragonflight. Shadowlands had a lot of amazingly cool features, some not so cool, and make sure you keep an eye out as well for my 5 least favourite features in Shadowlands. That video will be coming very, very soon. Number 5 is dungeons. Dungeons were a mixed bag for me. Overall, I would say I come out of this expansion happy. I come out with enjoyment of the dungeons. I think specifically Tazavesh Streets and Tazavesh Gambit were incredible dungeons. I really enjoyed doing them for my weekly 15 4-hour-long no-lever keys. But there were some bad ones too. Sanguine Depths just wasn't great. And Tyrannical specifically really felt punishing for a lot of these dungeons. There are some really good ones, some fast dungeon halls. As I said, Gambit, Necrotic Wait was very quick with weapons. Mists as well, a little bit slower, but a great dungeon as long as you had someone who could do the puzzle, which was never me. Season 4 changed everything, of course, and was maybe a little underwhelming. Grimrail Depot is... Iron Docks was okay. Karazhan had some balance issues, but overall felt very fun. My 4th favourite feature in Shadowlands was the Threads of Fate. Leveling with choice is something I've always wanted. I've always wanted to have that freedom to be creative with how I level, to do what I want when I want, to get to the end game. And Threads of Fate really did allow that. You could do dungeon content with a group of friends. You could do world content, be it experience zones and world quests or quests generally with friends or solo. And it gave us a lot of options. It did promote alt play, which was great. Leveling was quite quick. And especially now at the end of the expansion, you're finding leveling is very, very fast. Other aspects of the game maybe didn't promote alt play quite as much, but overall, I think Threads of Fate was just a great system. I'm looking forward to seeing Shadowlands go into Chromie time and allow us to do it again. I do think I'll do it again if I had that choice. I didn't want to have to do the quests over and over, and I don't have to now, which is great. So Threads of Fate in at number 4, not a lot to say about that one. Overall, just feels good. Didn't change too much, but certainly made leveling, again, enjoyable. Number 3, and this one could be a little controversial with you guys, was the raids. 3 raids in this expansion, and I would say a mixed bag. Castle Nathria to start was phenomenal. It was a great opening tier from the very first boss, Shriekwing, which in raid testing was completely different and really not very good. Ended up being just good fun. And all the way through, Castle Nathria was great, aside from probably 2 outliers. First of all, Council of Blood. We all got bored of dancing after a while. From a Race to World first perspective, it died pretty quick and it wasn't much of an issue. But from a progression, by the end, when we were all dancing left, dancing right, we were all going insane. And that became annoying. And of course, the biggest outlier, in my opinion, the worst boss in the history of the game, Stone Legion Generals. Again, from a Race to World first perspective, it wasn't too bad. It was difficult, but it didn't die too hard. But from a casual, world rank 500 below, it was a nightmare. Just an unfun RNG mess of a boss that required almost perfection from 20 people. It just wasn't very fun. I would say, if you took Castle Nathria and you replaced SLG with Painsmith Raznal or Holondrus the Reclaimer, I think it would be my all-time number 1 raid, by a distance. I really did enjoy most of the other bosses in that raid. It was also a good time in the game for me. So Nathria was overall a really strong positive. Then, of course, we went to Sanctum of Domination, and things slipped a little. The first few fights were all immemorable, I'd say. None of them stick with me. I remember reading about the 9 and thinking, this sounds great, but it was a pushover. And that was a bit of a shame because it did have potential to be a great raid. Obviously, the Sylvanas lore was massive. Painsmith Raznal was a really, really great boss. Unfortunately, it was immediately followed up with Kel'Thuzad, which was not a great boss whatsoever. It was a buggy mess. And Sylvanas herself was instead of a boss fight with RP inside it, it was RP with a boss fight inside. You spent much more time walking or going through the motions, especially once you'd really got to that final phase and were pushing for that 45% kill on the mythic difficulty. It was a little underwhelming in terms of mechanically and playing. Visually stunning, unbelievably stunning, and the voice acting was, of course, great as well. And it was great to fight Sylvanas. And then, of course, we went to Sepulchre of the First Ones, which was okay, middle of the ground, I'd say. The first boss was awful, but before too long we got to see, I think, everyone's favourite boy, Halondros the Reclaimer. I talked about him earlier. In my opinion, the visually best boss we've ever had. From a Race to World First perspective, as a commentator for that, just unbelievable. It was so much fun to cast that, to see progress from multiple guilds. Unreal difficult, required perfection, which was great. And I think WoW players like that one fight, especially. And I do talk a lot about the perspective of someone from the Race to World First, because here at Method, that's what we care about the most. Sludge Fist, to go back to that. Just, you could not make a mistake. If you made a mistake, you will not hit the DPS check. If someone dies, reset. That's amazing. We love that, because this also wasn't massively mechanically in-depth. It was, you know, for Sludge Fist, it was have a camp at the back, don't break your chains, don't get charged at by the big boy. For Halondros, it was drop your bombs, don't drop them in the wrong place, pick them up again, good luck. But it was just great. It was so much fun. It never got boring to watch. Even to this day, I enjoy replaying it, even if it's, you know, a bit of a joke now, and after nerfs, it did become a bit of a joke. Unfortunately, following Halondros, it was a little bit disappointing. The Lords of Dread, from a Race to World First perspective again, required a lot of tweaking of strategies. When you're bringing 4 or 5 survival hunters, it's just not great, and it wasn't the most fun. Rygal, on the other hand, another phenomenal boss, just incredible. From the voice acting, his booming voice, to having to handle the moats, to going into the quasars and damaging the ad on the side. Just unbelievable, really fun boss. And then the Jailer, which had all the hallmarks of a great boss. Mechanically, it was very fun to play. You know, you felt like you were making an impact when you're healing Azeroth herself. But it didn't quite have that visual spectacularness that the other 2 last bosses had. It was in one room. The room, you know, pillars came up and down, but it didn't change so much. It didn't feel quite as epic. And for the last boss of the expansion, maybe slightly underwhelming, difficult, certainly. It also came at the end of a 24-day Race to World First for Method, so we were all exhausted. But it may be not quite on the level of Denafris or Sylvanas visually, whilst being still above average fun to play. So I was really impressed with the epic feeling of the final encounters. I really hope that's something that Blizzard stick with in Dragonflight, because Denafris, to me, is one of the greatest bosses of all time. And like I said, the visuals of Sylvanas and the mechanical gameplay requirements of the Jailer, if they could just combine them all into one super good boss with the best of each, it would be unreal. So the raids coming in at number 3 for me. Number 2, the Great Vault. Now, this, some people would be like, why is this above raids? But it was just the best. Every Wednesday here in Europe, especially early on when you really needed that gear, could feel like Christmas morning. You'd wake up, you'd pray to our Jesus, and then you'd open your vault. It was great for streams, it was great for streamers. It could be very, very punishing, especially if, like I said earlier on, you didn't get that tier or that weapon or that trinket, and it's also not dropped for you. You could find yourself falling quite behind, but it was much, much better than the weekly chest from the years prior. And for a lot of people, it could be the highlight of our weeks. It allowed everyone to gear up at a decent pace. You always had the upgrade, simming them on a Wednesday and comparing and talking in guild. Everyone like, what did you get? It was just so much fun. So I really like the Great Vault. I am thrilled that it will be making its way into Dragonflight as well, with a new UI, but the exact same concept. And great to see the Great Vault continuing. And with that, number 1 on my list of favourite features of Shadowlands was the Legendary system. The Legendaries absolutely changed how the game played. They were expensive early on, and it can be very frustrating to get the mats, but overall, for the vast majority of specs, they increased the enjoyability of our classes. Now, earlier on, maybe not ideal, having to swap Legendaries a lot, specifically in Season 1 and 2, could be annoying, and as I said, it was expensive, you know, you had your single tag. But later on, when we got 2 Legendaries with Unity in Sepulchre, the first ones, it was just amazing. I played Havoc Demon Hunter this expansion, and when I finally got to unleash the full I-beam build, and it was all about being in Metamorphosis, I-beaming as much as possible, having another Demon Hunter sort of appear next to me, another demon to fire off a Fell Devastation as well. It just made it feel good. And I feel the majority of specs really enjoyed the legendaries that we got. It was a better legendary system than I think we've had in a very long time. It didn't restrict with RNG fests about what legendary is going to drop, or restrictions to very limited classes like the old days. It wasn't perfect, of course. Some classes just weren't as good, and it did mean you had to play a very cookie cutter build. There was very little room, like there will be in Dragonflight, for adjustment of talents and things like that. This is what you play, and this is how you log if you wanted to log high. That is my list, guys. I know it's probably going to be a little controversial for some of you, and I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. If I've upset you, said something wrong, comment, let me know. I'll be reading them. Try not to be too mean to me. But I'm really looking forward to seeing your 5 favorite, or more, 10 favorite, 20 favorite features of Shadowlands. With this being said, of course, look out for my 5 least favorite features of Shadowlands. That video will be coming very, very soon, or may already be out by the time you're watching this. Make sure if you got this far to like and subscribe to the Method channel. The race to World First is days away at this point almost. And at Method, we strengthened. The road to World First has been windy, but we're close. We finish second next time, and we want to push. We've just had Fragments return, one of the greatest DPS players, maybe even the greatest DPS player of all time, certainly in Method's history. And I can't wait to be a part of that. I look forward to being there with all of you guys. Thank you so much. My name has been Grant. This has been Method's 5 favorite features of Shadowlands, and we'll see you very soon.